Victor is standing in his own kitchen, phone in hand, trying to remember how much he spent on groceries last week. Not roughly, exactly. He needs the number for something small, splitting a cost with a roommate, and he realizes, standing right there in the room where half of that spending happened, that he has no idea. None. Not even a guess he'd trust. So he opens the app, the one that's been quietly connected to every account he owns for the past few months. It answers in half a second. Exact number, clean little chart, done. He should feel relieved. Instead, there's a small, strange discomfort under the relief. The sense that he just asked a question about his own life and needed someone else to answer it. It started reasonably enough. Victor downloaded the app because keeping track of everything manually had gotten exhausting. Categorizing purchases, checking balances across 3 different accounts, doing the mental math every time he wanted to know if he could afford something. The app promised to remove all of that. Connect your accounts once and it handles the rest. Smart categorization, instant answers, a little assistant that always knows. For the first few weeks, it felt like exactly the upgrade it promised to be. He'd open it before a purchase, get a quick read on whether it fit his month, and move on. Less friction, less mental math, less of that low hum of financial anxiety that used to follow him through the grocery store. But somewhere in there, the questions themselves started changing. He stopped asking himself, "Do I have room for this?" before checking. He started asking the app instead, first, not as a double check, as the actual first move. The place where the thinking used to happen quietly in his own head was now just a pause before he reached for his phone. By the time of that moment in the kitchen, the shift was complete enough that he didn't even notice it happening. He hadn't lost his budget. He lost the part of himself that used to track it, the part that could look at a receipt and already know, roughly, where it landed. That part had gone quiet because it hadn't been asked to do anything in months. There's a reason this happens so easily, and it isn't laziness. It's a very old, very efficient rule the brain runs on. If a task is being handled reliably by something outside of you, the part of your brain that used to do it stops rehearsing it. Not because you decided to stop paying attention, because attention is expensive and the brain quietly redirects it wherever it's still needed. This is the same mechanism behind the much more familiar example. Someone who's driven the same route home for 10 years using a map in their head can suddenly go blank the one day their phone dies, because for the last 2 years, they've been following a blue line instead of actually navigating. The knowledge didn't get erased, it just stopped being exercised, one outsourced turn at a time, until it quietly atrophied from disuse. Money works the same way, except the stakes are less visible in the moment. Getting lost on a familiar street is obvious immediately. Losing your internal sense of your own spending is not obvious at all. The app is always right there, always faster and more accurate than your memory could ever be. So there's never a single moment that feels like a loss. There's no wrong turn to notice. There's just a slow, comfortable handoff, purchase by purchase, until the internal number is gone and only the app's number is left. The uncomfortable part isn't that the tool is wrong. It's usually right. The uncomfortable part is what accuracy from the outside quietly replaces. The internal felt sense of your own financial life that used to update itself automatically just from paying attention. That sense doesn't come back the instant you want it to. It has to be practiced back into existence, the same way a sense of direction does. Left alone, this doesn't look like a crisis. It looks like convenience, indefinitely. The bills get paid, the categorization stays clean, nothing breaks. What quietly erodes instead is judgment under pressure, the kind you need in the exact moments a tool can't help you. An app can tell you what you spent last month. It can't tell you, in the 3 seconds before an impulsive purchase, whether this particular decision fits who you're trying to become, because that read requires the felt sense the app replaced. Victor, in the kitchen, didn't just lose a number. He lost a quick internal check that used to happen automatically, the one that doesn't require opening anything. There's a subtler cost too. When the app goes down, changes its pricing, gets acquired, or simply stops syncing correctly for a week, the person who outsourced their financial attention to it doesn't have a fallback. They're not just inconvenienced, they're temporarily blind to their own situation, in a way the version of them from a year earlier never would have been. The fix isn't to delete the app and go back to spreadsheets out of principle. The tools are genuinely useful. The fix is deciding, on purpose, which parts of financial awareness you're willing to hand over, and which ones you keep exercising yourself. The same way a driver can use a GPS for an unfamiliar city while still keeping their own sense of direction sharp for the neighborhood they actually live in. Here's a concrete way to do that. Do one manual check per week before opening the app. Once a week, before you look at any dashboard, take 30 seconds and guess your own numbers. Roughly what you've spent so far this week. Roughly what's left in your discretionary budget. Write the guess down. Then open the app and compare. You're not trying to be accurate. You're keeping the internal muscle in use so it doesn't go fully quiet. Over a few weeks, the gap between your guess and the real number tends to shrink on its own, simply because you're practicing the estimate instead of skipping straight to the answer. Pick one category the app doesn't manage for you. Choose a single spending category, eating out or a hobby, whatever tends to slip, and track it the old way, a note on your phone, a small notebook, anything that isn't automated. This keeps at least one part of your financial life running on your own attention, so you always have proof to yourself that you still can, even while everything else runs on autopilot. Ask a different question before a purchase. Instead of opening the app to check if you can afford something, ask yourself first, what do I think this does to my month? Only after answering, open the app to check. The order matters. Checking first turns the app into your judgment. Guessing first keeps the judgment yours. And the app becomes what it was supposed to be, a second opinion, not a replacement for a first one. Do a no-app week once a quarter. For 7 days, stop opening the dashboard and go back to checking account balances directly, the plain way. It's inconvenient on purpose. That inconvenience is exactly what rebuilds the felt sense of your own numbers. The same way occasionally driving without navigation on a route you already know keeps your actual sense of direction from disappearing entirely. None of this requires giving up the convenience for good. It just makes sure the convenience is something you're choosing on purpose, rather than something that quietly chose for you. A month later, Victor tries the weekly guess before checking the app for the first time. His estimate is off by a wide margin. He underguessed by more than he expected, mostly restaurant spending he hadn't registered as adding up. It's a little humbling. It's also useful in a way the app's number alone never was, because the size of the gap tells him something the accurate number doesn't, exactly where his attention had gone quiet. He keeps doing it. Second week, the gap is smaller. Third week, smaller still. He's not trying to beat the app. He's just rebuilding the sense that used to update on its own, the one that went dormant somewhere in those first convenient months. He also picks eating out as his one manually tracked category on a plain note on his phone. It's a small, slightly annoying habit, but a few weeks in, he notices something. He can look at a restaurant menu now and already have a rough sense of whether it fits the month before he opens anything. The internal number is coming back online, not because the app got worse, but because he started asking himself first again. None of this is really about the app. Tools that think for us are only going to get better and more embedded, in money and everywhere else. That's not a problem to fight. Mostly, it's a genuine gift. But there's a difference between a tool that supports your judgment and one that quietly becomes it. The first keeps you sharper. The second, without ever meaning to, makes you a little more like a passenger in your own financial life. Accurate, informed, and strangely disconnected from the numbers that are supposedly yours. The goal was never to know less so something else could know more. It was to still recognize your own life when you looked at it directly, without needing a translator first.